Not to be like the world, and not to be like the great majority of American Christians, but to be like Jesus Christ. I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
What's wrong with you people? I'm serious.
You can't say amen, you ought to say ouch.
Hello, Humblebees. Welcome to Tulips and Honey.
Hi, Humblebees. Welcome back to Tulips and Honey. I am your host, Lauren Hereford, and today I am being joined by a guest that is returning for the second time. You, Jasmin, are one of the few people that I have had back on for a second time. So you listeners, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a card right above you where you can click to see Jasmin's testimony. And the last time you joined me, we talked about your work with design, your homeschooling, and your testimony and things to that nature. But this time we're going to be talking about a completely different subject. So welcome back to the program, Jasmin Davis.
Hello.
Have you here, the clever decorator herself. I'm so thankful that you are joining me again. But today we're going to bring out like a completely different side of your personality. Like people are going to be blown away by this because not only are you a brilliant decorator and just a beautiful Christian woman, wife, mom, but also you're brilliant in general. Like you're just a brilliant human being. So we're going to talk about that today and evolution. So you volunteered for this, like sister. Wow.
Yes, I volunteered just because I was prior to staying at home mama. I was a middle school and elementary science teacher. So, and my degree is in biology, my minor is in chemistry. And so I have a passion for the subject.
That is so neat. I never get people that are just like, hey, I want to volunteer to get pummeled by atheists. So that's what you've done today. You volunteered for that. But hopefully the atheists will be super nice. Most of the time they are. Very rarely do we have like really mean, aggressive atheists. So I'm sure they'll be fine. Also, if you guys want to send hate mail, I do forward that hate mail to my producer, Clementine. She's our 2-year-old golden doodle. She's asleep right now. So I don't know if she's ever going to get to y'all's hate mail, but we're going to be talking about evolution today. And I'm so excited to have you on here because you do have a background in this. It's something that you went to school for, and not only going to school for, something my husband's always telling me is that if you really want to understand something, you need to be able to teach it. And so if you can not just learn something, but then like reiterate it in a way where somebody else can understand, then you truly understand this subject. So you did that. Does that help you like retain this knowledge because you taught it for so many years?
It does some, and hopefully my mom brain didn't, erase some of this stuff. But yes, definitely something. I guess just like Reformed theology, you just get into it and you just seeing how amazing God is, and the more you dig, the more you find, and the more you see how God is amazing through creation, and so it's just sticks. It sticks, and it creates a passion that you just want to share with other people. Kind of like I think that's why you like it as well, just because it proves that the Bible is true, and it just gets you pumped up to share the gospel because you have proof. You have this creation behind you to back up your claims.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely why I love this topic. When we get to discuss anything that glorifies God, I love that. That is so exciting to me. Yes. We know that we can take these evidences, the evidence themselves, like I mentioned in the last episode. It's not last episode, but the dinosaurs episode, which I can put a card up above if you guys want to watch that. The evidence itself isn't going to save anybody, but that's not what our purpose is in really understanding these things. As a believer, for me, understanding these things is because it glorifies God. Like it's exciting to me to learn about the ways, like I think it was Isaac Newton that said science is thinking God's thoughts after him. Is that the right quote?
I'm not sure.
I should check before I just do say random stuff like that, huh? But either way, we're going to be talking about evolution, and I'm super excited about this topic. And I'm excited about the prospect of getting to give an apologetic. One of the first early church fathers that I learned the most about when I became a new believer was Justin Martyr, who wrote a 3-part apologetics, right? Like his trilogy in Apology, I think it was called Apology back then, but it was all about the evidence, the reason for what they were doing at the time. And I didn't understand how important that is if we're, as believers, we're talking to non-believers, it's great to share the gospel. And that's something that we need to do. It needs to be priority. But then if that person then comes back to us the next day and says, well, what about dinosaurs? What about the rocks that have, like been around for whatever amount of time they want to say that they've been around? Then we need to be able to respond to that. And so this is helpful for discipleship. But I think most importantly, I'd love to hear your opinion about this, sister, for our kiddos to learn about these things.
Absolutely. Because, they'll get bombarded if they go to public school or if they have secular friends, they need to have an answer for these things because it could shake their faith. If they don't know, they can't answer it, then they're like, why do I even believe this if I don't, does that make sense with what I'm being taught at home or in the Bible? So they definitely need to have an answer for things. So it's good that if they come home and they tell you, well, what about this? And it's mom, let's look it up. Let's go look it up so we can have an answer for next time and you can have a response. So don't be intimidated. If you don't know the answer, look for it.
Yes.
There's lots of resources out there that I'm sure we can link later for finding these answers.
Yeah, we're very blessed in this generation to have the access that we have to all of this information. Absolutely. I think like by the end of every single day, I'm like, man, there was so much more stuff that I wanted to learn today that I didn't get to because we have so much stuff available to us freely. But let's start with like the basics if we're, because I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. So I just want to say this really quickly to the listener that's maybe an atheist, theist, or frustrated with the fact that this conversation is even happening. I'm not trying to talk down to you. So if everything we're about to talk about is something you already understand, that's totally great. There's a time-stamped outline. You can skip to wherever you want to skip to in the descriptions below. But for the person who maybe went through a public school that was not so great. So I went through several public schools. We moved a lot, so I missed a lot in the moves. Different schools are on to different topics at different times. And if you're like me or like anybody who just perhaps went to a public school that just really didn't have the greatest science teachers, you might have missed these points. So let's sort of start with a little bit of the basics here. What is a scientific theory?
Scientific theory is something you can explain by an observed observation, and it can be repeated and explained of why that thing is happening, and usually it could be repeated. But unfortunately, with the creation and how they explain creation, which is Big Bang, it cannot be observed. So you cannot repeat that observation or do an experiment to show how it really happened because it was in the past. We can't, create a world in front of us to prove that theory. And so that's where the rub is, where both require belief, both the perspectives, evolution and creation. You have to, it's a belief in those things because you cannot see them and observe them today. And you just live in the present and you can't replicate what happened back then or prove what happened back then. And it's just by making observations that you can prove your point, I guess you can say. But evolutionists want to try to prove the world without God, and we're trying to show them that God exists. So it's always going to come from two different biases, and that's why it's so much a big debate out there because it's it's a bias on both sides.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned that it's going to be a belief system because it does explain why so many people are so passionate about it. Like I'm passionate about my faith in God. If there's somebody out there that's passionate about evolution, they're passionate about the Big Bang Theory or Richard Dawkins, whoever it is that they're passionate about, and we're shooting holes into their belief system, they're going to be ready to fight back. The majority of people that we address, though, are not aware that this is even a worldview perspective. So most of the time I talk to people and they say, well, evolution is a fact. It's a scientific theory. It's a fact. It's been proven. And so can you explain a little bit of the difference between like what we would say is like the theory of gravity and what it means whenever we're talking about like the theory of evolution?
Well, gravity can be centrifugal force, and anything like that. Entropy, you observe it, and can it be repeated? You can, do tests like, gravity. You drop something, you'll see it happen. But with evolution, it's something that the magic word that they use is millions and millions and millions of years because you can't see it, and that's how they explain it and it's their magical term for everything or solution for everything. That it's because it takes so long, we don't see it, we don't observe it. When they explain evolution, usually their examples are microevolution, which is a speciation, like how you were talking. It's still the same species, still the same animal. It's just variations within the kind, but it's not transforming from a turtle to a rabbit. It's not changing that way. It's still a rabbit. It just has a different hair color, or it's maybe shorter, smaller, whatever, but it's still a rabbit. And that's how they prove evolution, but they're not showing, like, they're trying to say that's evolution, but it's really just speciation or, natural selection when certain traits come out because of where they live and things like that. But they're trying to explain macroevolution, which is, transformation from one totally different kind of animal, like they say the dinosaurs from reptiles to birds. But they give the example of, Darwin's finches, which is just, it's still a finch and just different shapes of beaks, So they bait and switch. So
that makes a lot of sense. That's what they
unfortunately do.
So it's really a way of taking words and sort of manipulating them to mean different things, because if we're talking about speciation, everybody agrees with speciation. If you want to just put like, and this is something just as like an aside that everybody does, like not literally every human being, but every group of people. We find this sort of inconsistency with what they want to do. And one of the things that really frustrates me is when people are not really clear with what they're saying. And so we see that when people say like soft complementarianism. I don't know if you like have had to deal with that, but those are some of the things that really frustrate me. Like, what do you mean soft complementary? You're like a complementarianism, or you egalitarianism? But so they take these words and they just add macro, micro in front of it, and they think, okay, well, there we go, we've fixed the problem. The issue is that this is not clarifying the situation. It's actually muddying the water, which we need to avoid whenever we're talking about science. The draw that I have towards science is the fact that it's logical. I love that about science. We're seeing this uniform world that is behaving in a certain way that God created it to behave. And I love that when we look at science, we can see things happening in a specific way. Like you mentioned entropy. Whenever I learned about entropy as a grown up, because I don't remember learning about it in school, as an adult, I learned about entropy and I thought, this is amazing. We wouldn't be able to eat food if we didn't have entropy. Like, things need to break down so that we can digest them and stuff. And all these things connecting and stuff is fascinating. But when we muddy the water with these sort of weird words that we want to just throw in there to make our point or make our case, where we don't have to actually argue the facts, it's really frustrating. So when you're talking about the differences between evolution and actual speciation, has there ever been actually pointed to something that is sort of like possibly evidence for macro evolution, or is everything that we hear from them so far basically just speciation? Because like the beaks and stuff, that would be.
That's mostly what they point to. Before there was big talk about missing links, and they would try. If that theory was true, like if there was that, there would be tons of evidence of in between animals all over the place. How there's fossils, there will be in between animals, and there just isn't. What they would try to use for that evidence would be like Lucy and different kinds of extinct apes, but they're still apes. Or they would be extinct apes or current apes, or what is now a human, or just current human bones. Just
like there should be like versions of humanity from like where we started at to where we are now. I find it really fascinating to learn about like the Neanderthals and stuff like that. That they we all have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA in all of our DNA. I thought that was really, really interesting. So we're talking about like missing links. It was predicted way back whenever all of this stuff started that there was going to be a lot of missing links. So we were going to see things all over the place. And I did a blog series just detailing all of the different missing links that ended up being hoaxes, because people were just, really desperate for like circus show stuff back then, like things that were
fabricating things just to get their name out there.
Yes, exactly.
To get just for recognition, for pride.
Right.
They would mix human bones with ape bones to kind of we found it together in the same vicinity, but it was not even close. Things like that. There's a lot of those kind of cases. Or they'll use, like, I'm not sure if I'm saying this fish names correctly, like coelacanth, you know what I'm talking about? The lobed fish.
Right.
A lobed fish, which they use it as a missing link, but it's still alive today.
Right. It's still there, and it's still just as ugly as it was back then. I'll just put a picture up real quick for everybody to see on here. If you're listening, I'm sorry, you need to go watch on YouTube because these things are crazy looking. They're really creepy.
Yeah,
I don't want to see one. I don't want to see one in the water. But they call those like, they're huge. They're the Lazarus fossils or something, things that they thought were gone, and then they realize now have come back. I think
like
that's
trilobites. Trilobites are still around.
Right. Like, I don't understand how we still would have these things if they evolved into something different. And it really, this is just a sort of weird aside, but I was wondering what you thought about this. This is just one of those weird random inconsistencies where we hear people telling us about how, like, we have to save the mice and save, the polar bears and all this stuff. But at the same time, these very same people will believe in natural selection. So, or
the animal's supposed to adapt and turn into something else so they don't get killed, right?
Right, yeah. So it's kind of like an inconsistency in their worldview. Is there a consistent way for us as believers to see these things? Like, should we be saving the polar bears? Should we let the polar bears adapt? What do you think about that? Sort of like a random aside.
I mean, God gave us this earth, and we should just do our best to take care of it. I mean, it's not. It will pass away eventually, but we do have a responsibility to do the best we can as citizens in this world, to take care of it as best we can. We can't fix everything because it's just not possible, but just be responsible with the earth is what my point of view is.
I like that. That's so great. I totally agree with you 100%. I think that there are believers who take it too far where this becomes sort of like their gospel, where they're all about, the green stuff. And people are sending me a lot of information about how to naturally, get rid of COVID whenever I had it. And I'm like, guys, I'm dying. Please stop. I promise you lavender is not going to help me be able to. But then there's also believers who are just like, hey, this world is going to end anyways. Who cares? So I think that's a great balance right in the middle. When you're dealing with these kind of topics, because you mentioned this at the beginning, where our children they're going to face this, right? We don't just see this in public schools. This is in almost every TV show that my daughter has ever enjoyed. Like, she's seeing this everywhere. It's on posters.
Yeah, I cringe when I hear the millions of years, and I'm like, oh, here it goes, and it's just like they sneak it in there. They
do. Yeah, it's everywhere. How do you address that with your little girls? Because you've got 3 beautiful daughters that you're homeschooling, and when you're as a parent having to see this, we can't shelter them forever. But is there a point where, at what age did you think, okay, now they're ready for this discussion? And as they grow older, how do you feel like you're going to address this in a more like scientific, detailed kind of way?
Right now it's we barely broached the topic. They like to watch like Dino Dan or Dino Dana, and it has a lot of evolution in there. So I scale back on there but then we have the conversations of why their information isn't accurate, and we would just go back to the Bible and always bring out the Bible and just discuss it from there. That it's just a point of view, that it's not fact. The evolution thing that they have, and why they can't prove it. But we stand on the word of God, which we believe to be infallible. And so this is what the Bible says, and this is what we believe. And
that's a great way to
so far.
Yeah. Bringing it back to scripture is really exciting for little ones. Do you think as a homeschooling mom, especially because you have this background, you're a science teacher, do you plan on teaching them both sides of this debate where you're giving the information from both sides? Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. Yes. That's great.
Yes, because they need to know and they need to defend it. And like when they don't get blindsided by somebody who's just like, well, what about this and this and that? Like we've already at least discussed it or broached it or know a little bit about it. So yeah, definitely being educated on both sides just to be able to defend it, because if you don't know what they believe, you can't defend your side, or how to talk to them, or especially with friends, just to have a conversation with them, like, okay, so they can poke holes on their side. Well, have you thought about that on this, kind of thing?
Right.
Like evolution, it's the second law of thermodynamics. They're big on laws. Like, you don't believe in laws, and of course we do. because God made them.
Right.
God made these earth laws. But the second law of thermodynamics was entropy, which everything tends to decay and disorder. Then how their proof is that everything gets better. Like you see that famous picture of the ape getting bigger and better into a human. That's going against the law of entropy. It's not getting better. We tend to decay. We get older and wrinkly. Unfortunately, we're going the opposite direction than they say we are.
Yeah, that's always been something that's confused me. When I ask them about that, I tend to get the answer that we're a closed system. So in our or an open system, now I can't remember exactly which way they say it, but that our system here on Earth is different because it's open, and so that's why things can get better. But we're not seeing that in actual scientific study. So it's not just in one area where you can say, okay, well, yeah, things are decaying, but they're only decaying here. We just watched a really cool video about the Titanic and how it's not going to last for much longer because there are little microbials in there that are eating the iron and eating the metal, and they're just thriving, and they've created like a whole little ecosystem down there, and so yeah, exactly, yeah, and they're really destroying that sucker. Like it's almost completely halfway destroyed, and it's only been like 100 and some odd years, but we see that everywhere. If you leave a barn out in the middle of a field and you don't take care of it and you don't repaint it, it's gonna
requires work. Decay. It requires work for it to avoid being
energy.
Energy input. Yes. Where's this energy input coming from?
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Yeah, that's what I'm always hearing. They're saying, well, we have a new energy input coming from the sun, but the sun is actually damaging to our body, to our skin cells and stuff like that. And so, when you were in school, like when you were actually addressing this, were you a believer already? And did you have to like fake it until you make it to pass your classes, or?
I was, I was, but I was reading your question that actually never in college, it never came up. Like I studied biology, and it's just current, you're studying current present day. And it's very rare that you would go back to the origins of life, because I guess they probably get weird. I'm sure they would get questions that they can't answer. So I'm sure they don't go there. They just go from what they're trying to teach, the current day, and these are the types of animals that exist in the world, and these are their technical names and blah blah blah, because that's biology. And so they go from there. But I never got to experience anybody trying to defend evolution.
Interesting.
Yeah. That was just my particular experience. But I'm sure if you would, talk to them and argue with them, then they would be like, "You're crazy." What do you mean, young? What is this young Earth you're talking about? Never heard of that. Or
right. When your little girls get older and they're heading away to college, do you think that you would encourage them to have this conversation, or do you think that you're going to be like, forget college and let's just avoid all of the horrificness that is the sinful world? That's kind of what I want to say. I want to say no, baby. Just
all right. I think it just depends on what they're wanting to do for their career. Fortunately for being females, they can always go back and stay home or have a college career and use it, not use it. So it's not a big pressure compared to a young man, who has to support a family. So it's a lot more flexible in that. But I would just hope that we build a strong enough foundation from now to high school when they, potentially leave us, that they're firm in their faith and what they believe. And I wouldn't be fearful to let them out and to be in the world just because I want them to be influencers, and to preach the gospel into places where there is no gospel, or they've never heard, like you said, of creation. That's even another viable option. Like you don't understand. There's so much evidence for it. Even if you're not a believer or believe in the Bible, like we can, point to evidence for you.
Speaking of that, that's like a really, really great way. Like a question that just occurred to me. What was the best evidence that you did hear whenever you were learning about all these things? What was like the one thing that you were like blown away by the most?
Well, just the evidence for a flood. Like just a lot of things can be explained for a worldwide flood. A lot of these catastrophes, it's a big catastrophe event that could have caused a lot of land formations, potentially like the Grand Canyon, things like that. And then, of course, all the fossils we find is because they got buried with all this amount of water. Like, how do these fossils form without air? And so, and I know you're a big fossil person, so.
I just got a new one. That just reminded me, I just got a new one. So keep going. I'm going to totally.
And so, yes, that. And then, of course, a cool one that's here close to Dallas that you know of is just footprints, human footprints next to a dinosaur footprints. Riverbed, where they've seen footprints of, and you can take pictures of them, and you can go visit them, and it's just cool. Really cool evidence. And
have y'all been?
Yes, yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, see, I didn't know that existed yet.
Yeah, it's open. There's certain parts that are open to the public. You can go at any time, and you can just observe. You can see the actual dinosaur footprints, and
that's so cool.
It's very neat, very neat.
That is so neat.
There's a little tiny creation science museum there that has actual samples that have been taken out because they can get warm because there's still water running through that riverbed.
Yeah, that is crazy. I am so thankful for that kind of stuff though, where they were able to preserve that. I think the idea, the constant refrain that I'm hearing anytime I want to talk about dinosaurs is, well, you don't find humans buried with dinosaurs, and so obviously that means that there was no dinosaurs alive whenever humans were evolving or whatever like that. And so I think it's fascinating that we see this repeated over and over again, where people are consistently forgetting the fact that we can't prove things that happened that long ago. So
then of course there's the dragons. Like, I know you brought up the dragons and how there's tons of myths of dragons and pictures on Chinese pottery of long-necked dinosaurs. Like, they did not have fossils. They must have seen these things in person to have drawn these animals. Like, and it's not that old. So.
Oh yeah, even like the original fossils, whenever they were starting to put them together and they found them and they put them together so bad, like they were so wrong with how they put them all together. Like, scientists now can look back in like the 1800s, early 1900s and be like, wow, you guys had no idea how to put these things together. So if they had found those fossils, the Chinese and I think there's some in like the Mayans and stuff like that, they still wouldn't have known what they looked like. I mean, it's still just bones. Like, I have this one here. I haven't shown anybody this yet, so you're the first person that's going to see it. Okay. Okay, I just got this one. This is I'm going to mispronounce it. Triceratops tooth with double root.
Oh, that's awesome! So it's a tooth. Awesome.
It's a tooth. It's a fossilized tooth with its root.
With the root on it. Yeah.
If you saw that, you wouldn't know what this, it could be like a mouth,
Which again, just makes you think of dinosaur fossils. Some of they're being currently discovered with live tissue or just soft tissue inside them, and that cannot possibly happen if it's millions and millions of years old. It's only explained if it's a couple thousand, a few thousand years old.
Yeah, I would love to hear you explain that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of confusion in the dating. So when we see people that are like, well, the dates, they've been dated by computer programs and stuff, so we know that these things are millions of years old. So can you explain that a little bit? Like, how long do these things last? How long can soft tissue and all carbon dating and things like that, do those things really last millions of years? Because I can't find anywhere in any kind of science book that explains that.
No, they're really very rarely do they use carbon dating for anything because it's not reliable. That they have potassium argon dating and all those chemical type of datings by finding the amount of molecules that are decaying in the whatever substance they're trying to date. But it's not reliable. They can take currently living things and do the same test, and it'll say it's a million years old. It's just not reliable, unfortunately, way of dating. So then they go back to the archaic fossil column, or was it geological column, which is using circular reasoning. I think you discussed it on your dinosaur one, which they use an index fossil to date that particular layer. And then well, how old is that, that index fossil? Well, it depends on that layer. And then just go back in circles around to explain one from the other. And it's still in our textbooks, and it's not.
It's still there.
And if you read it in the textbook, it'll say, how do you date this fossil? Because of the layer. And then on the next page, it'll say, this fossil, how do you know how old this fossil is? Because of the layer. And they don't correct it. They just leave it there because they are hoping people don't catch that stuff.
Right.
Which brings to science. They hold this in a pedestal. They hold science on a pedestal, like there's a be all, end all. when it's made by like, I'm not talking about laws. I'm talking about theories and things that are subjective, that you cannot hold a scientist who is fallible, that will not change his mind. Like, before, even in medicine, like before they thought bloodletting was the proper way to deal with disease.
Right.
And they were basically draining the life out of these people.
Right.
And the Bible tells us the life is in the blood. It's
exactly.
It's more reliable. God gave us His word, which is reliable and infallible. We can rely on it and study it and look for answers there when we can't. And it's not the same as looking to humans for the answers, because they make mistakes. We're sinful. We're fallen by nature, so we're not going to have the answers. God is going to have the answers. If He's outside of us, we're not. It's not us. We don't have the answers.
Right, exactly. Oh, I love how you said that. Like, this just makes so much more sense to go to the one that actually created it. If we're talking about the fact that we can't go back in time and see these things happen, we can trust the one that was there, that is outside of time, and he doesn't exist in our dimensionalities where we have to deal with time and get old and all that stuff. But there is such a richness, I think, to science, where we are able to look at these things and say, wow, this is fascinating. This is interesting things. But unfortunately, when we talk about like school books and stuff, like you said, these things are still taught in those books, even though they don't make sense. They're not very logical. It's still in there, and it can cause confusion. Very few, I think, I don't remember anybody questioning that when I was in school, but it confused me to the point where I didn't enjoy science when I was in school. Like, it was so dry to me, the way that it was being explained. So do you think that this has had over the last, like, I think, what was it, legalized in 1930 something? So I guess that would be 70, 80, 90. It's okay. I'm homeschooling people. I can do math. It's been nearly 100 years. So, since this has been something that has happened into our educational system, do you think that it has affected the way that people view science? Is that why so many believers are against science? And what was your experience with the students whenever you were teaching? Because I'm sure you were a really exciting, cool teacher. Like, I did have one cool science teacher. I can remember her, but the rest of them were coaches.
I hope I was. But no, I actually, I taught public school, and I did teach creation in my science classrooms.
Oh, that's so great.
I was, if I ever would have gotten in trouble, I would have, said sorry, but I didn't ask for permission. I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. And besides, it's in Texas law to teach accurate information. And so, we're just teaching a theory that it's a theory that's out there. Then they need to know about it,
Right. Absolutely.
And so, that's why I was doing it. And they were just blown away that they just didn't even know that you could defend the Bible, and it was just very encouraging to them, to show them that, so they could go search for themselves, and at least spike that curiosity, like, how you found out, like, well, I didn't even know you could defend the 6 days, literal days of creation,
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, it's very harmful to be teaching lies, and it's lies in the textbooks, just having this fallible theory that is not proven, that has lots of mistakes. Even the own scientists that wrote them do not agree with each other about them, about even the exact dates that they're supposing, the millions and billions, and all have different suppositions, different theories. And so I honestly think it shouldn't even be in there, because they don't agree upon anything, or at least present all the theories, not just one, and hold it as fact. But it is affecting our children, because it's making them question the Bible. It's making them think that the Bible is just a story, and it's not something to believe. And that's what their end goal is, to believe that we came to be, we're responsible for ourselves. We can do whatever we want to do because there is no God.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to inculcate in our children, and to moral relativism and all this stuff that they're trying to indoctrinate our children, unfortunately, with this information, And so, even if your children go to public school, it's your job to teach them these things, it's as parents, and make sure that they can defend their faith and why we believe what we believe. Just apologetics. Like, again, coming from both of us, how we thought we were saved or Christians, but we didn't have any idea. We
Right.
had no idea what theology was.
Right.
We were just not. We thought just by saying we love Jesus, that was being a Christian, and we
Right.
just were not informed. So we need to be informed
Yeah.
and be able to defend our faith. Why do we believe what we believe, and not just the fluffy stuff, the hard questions like why is there evil in the world? Why is there people dying and suffering and all this? We need to be able to answer that to anyone who requires an answer. Yeah.
Definitely. And really, if you can answer those questions, it a lot of times, okay, let me back up a little bit. A lot of times we have people come at us and they're asking these questions, and it can feel like we're being like attacked by these people, like they're angry or whatever it is. But actually, it's quite possible most of the time that they really just are genuinely unsure about this. It can be a tremendous blessing to people if you lovingly address questions like, why is there evil in the world? What about evolution? These sort of things. It's almost like we have gotten so defensive on social media that we forget that people might just genuinely not know. Maybe they really just expect you to know and they don't, and they'd like you to explain it. So do you think that evolution is like is this a theological issue that we need to be addressing in the church?
Yes, because if you don't believe the Bible for what it says, then how can, like, if you don't believe the 6 literal days of creation, where the beginning of the Bible, the first sentence, in the beginning, God created, then why were you going to believe that God, Jesus resurrected, or that he died for your sins later on in the New Testament? If you start questioning this little piece, then you're going to question this little piece, and they're going to question that little piece, and it's all going to fall apart on you. So you definitely need to know, study why, apologetics in the sense of why we know that the Bible is infallible, like its origins and how it's been preserved from time when it was written till now. How it's been the same, the Word of God, and it's amazing how God has protected its word, His word. So
definitely, those are fascinating things to study too for believers. We should be fascinated by those things, and we do have access to learn about that. When I first learned that there was actually like a way to look and see how the Bible got to where it is today, I was blown away by that. Like, that stuff is so interesting. I don't know why it's not more focused on these like historical or scientific issues. They're really just not focused on in the church. But you made a great point. You said that like parents, we really are responsible for teaching this to our children. So I don't ever want to just say, hey, churches need to be doing this because I don't want to. We need to do it too. And if your church isn't doing it, maybe it's something that you, as a listener, you guys could step up and try to help provide classes for this. So what kind of maybe stuff do you have over there that you could like mention to people that they might like?
One of my favorite ministries is Answers in Genesis, and that's what they are. It's apologetic ministry, and to answer these tough questions. And they have like a series of books. This one's called The Answers. I think it's a series of 3 books. I just have this first one with me, but it has, if you go through it, it says like, what did the dinosaurs eat and how did they behave? It just all these questions that you get. Did the dinosaurs come from birds and all that kind of stuff, and it gives you answers and scientific answers. Ken Ham is amazing because he has like tons of research that he does, and he has this huge team, just a huge network of people, and they're scientific people currently trying to give you all the evidence that you might want or need. And that's what his ministry is. Like, throw him a question and he'll research it, and he'll have a team of scientists to give you the answers. And it's amazing. His website's amazing. So anything you might want to know, kind of curious about, he has an answer for, and it's researched. In homeschool, there's a curriculum. It's called Apologia Science. And it's amazing. It goes through a series of creation, and this one I think is first grade, but it's just flying creatures of the 5th day. But when you go through it, it'll have God intertwined and the Bible intertwined in there, and just bring forth evidence of God's creation, amazing creation. And it's just and it's called Apologia because it wants to give you an answer for what you believe.
That's
in the
so
Bible.
cool.
So yeah, very cool.
I'm definitely going to check that out. That is really, really neat. Okay.
That's a cool series, and it goes all the way to high school, even college level, almost college level science. So, and they have courses online too. So once your daughter gets to high school and she's, interested in science, they can take really like college level courses. It's amazing.
Oh, that's so exciting. Oh, Kaylee loves science. She loves science. She is like,
so it's a good one. And it has lots of cool experiments in them too. It's, it's just not just boring text. It has tons of, things to do to implement hands-on learning.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I really struggle with science in the house, like as a homeschooling mom, because I love the topic and I have so much fun, but there's a lot of detail that needs to go into teaching these things. So I struggle with that. So I'm going to definitely look into that.
Just to have something to follow along is always helpful.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I need. I need somebody to keep me from squirreling into every different topic of sciences. I'm like, okay. Cause this is, like aerodynamics. And so whenever we talk about aerodynamics, do you want to learn how an engine is built? Oh my goodness. Let's go see what combustion is. And then we're like, by the end of the day, we've gotten nothing done. So I struggle with my daughter is, she's wonderful. She's super patient, but she loves science. It's always been her favorite topic. So I'm going to check that out. I was going to recommend for the listeners too, there is a creationsearch.org, which is a search engine of just creation websites. So one thing that's kind of random that I wanted to ask you about before I get to a silly question is I was really interested to learn that there is a law of information where if something is, if there's information available that according to the law of science, somebody had to write it. So there has to be a giver of the information if we have information. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. Do you?
Well, the only thing I can add to that is just like the DNA, like how they were saying, Noah's Ark, how could all the different types of animals come from that? Right. They question us really big on that when they believe we came from soup. We say they came from kinds, but they say soup and we're the crazy ones. But anyway.
Soup.
Primordial soup. Everything came from primordial soup. But we believe God made the animals, and from those kinds, then there was a variation. But God put in those kinds all that DNA, all that information that's there, and it just happened to be through natural selection. Which we agree with natural selection that, depending where you live, those traits are going to be expressed. Just that information is all self-contained. God gave us that DNA and those kinds, and it cannot be added onto, and it can only be
because a lot of people have never heard of it. So I've had people actually be like, "You just made that up." And
well, they're saying that we can get better, but there's not that information there to get better from. Like it just has a limitation. It has a limitation. We can only suppress part of the information to express a certain gene or things like that, but not add on to. Like, we fantasize about it, like, the X-Men, where we get these cool superpowers, and we're just fantasizing about it, but that's not reality,
Yeah, so. No, yeah, it's a shame because that would be really, really cool.
Yes.
So that just brings me to a really cool, silly question. Then, I don't think I got the chance to ask you about pineapple pizza though on the last interview because I tried to give.
You don't want to know my answer.
Away.
You don't want to know my answer.
I think that already tells me what it is. I tried to stop asking. I really was like, okay, Phil Johnson said that John MacArthur doesn't eat it. I think that's pretty good. I think that's all we really needed. And I had so many people sending me messages and pictures and information like, oh, check me out. I'm eating pineapple pizza. And I was like, guys, I tried to let this go, but since you're not going to let it go, I'm going to make a t-shirt against it. So, but I would love to hear your opinion about pineapple pizza as a scientist. Let me hear your opinion. Your scientific opinion.
God made the pineapple to enjoy it.
To enjoy the pineapple with whipped cream and not on pizza. I'm just kidding. Do your kiddos like it too?
They do.
Oh, that's so neat. At least you guys can share it together. You guys can all eat as a family. And I'll pray for all of you.
Pineapple and bacon, not just ham. Bacon as well.
I've heard people say that the reason I didn't like the slice that I ate was because there was no bacon on it. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I think it was because there was a massive piece of pineapple on it. And I should have gone for something a little more chopped up.
I think in your head it's just like savory does not go with sweet. I think that's what your brain is telling you.
That's right. I could get around it if I wanted to, but My brain likes its stuff all the way that it has it. But anyways, I've got another silly question for you, because that was just sort of a little random one that I had to do because I didn't get to do that last time you were on the program. But sister, my silliest question for you is actually, if there was something in science fiction that could be real, what would you want to make real from science fiction?
Teleportation.
Ah, yes. Oh, that's a great answer.
Teleportation would just be so
that.
cool, just to go from here to there in an instant, just travel around the world so much faster.
Oh, I love that idea. Then you would never have to deal with the the people at the airport. I don't know why I can't remember anything. TSA, thank you. I can't remember anything today. Okay. Well, sister, thank you so much for joining me and talking about this. I am so blessed by everything that you do. If you guys want to get a hold of Jasmin, to be nice and not to be mean about this episode, because she was a science teacher, so you guys better watch out. She'll send you detention. You'll get detention. You'll get in trouble. No, I'm just kidding. I'll make sure that I have linked to all of your stuff, because you are a wonderful decorator. You do such great stuff. You have such a sweet family. I'm so blessed by everything you do. And I am super blessed by you coming on to have this conversation with me. And
thank you for having me and nerding out with me.
Yes, I was going to say you geeked out with me. Thank you, sister. God bless you. Oh, wait, before you go, is there anything we could be praying for you?
Just continued health, just to be able to, teach the kids at home, and just grace from the Lord.
Absolutely.
But no, I love what I do. I love teaching my kiddos and being a stay-at-home mom and blessing my family through it. But just for the Lord to show grace.
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely. Well, great. We will be praying for you, sister. And God bless you. I'm so thankful for you. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, Humblebees. That is it. That is all I have for you today. I really hope that you were blessed by this discussion. I know that there's going to be some folks in the comment section below that are going to maybe not be as happy about this particular subject, or perhaps they're not going to like the fact that we didn't address all of the different little things that we could have addressed. This is a massive subject, and I am happy to send you guys any sort of information. I have written a lot about this on my blog, so if there's anything that we missed here that you want information about, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Or if you want to have a full-on conversation, you can email me or message me on social media and we can discuss this. Also, I would love to hear y'all's response to the silly question. What do you think? Do you think would be the coolest science fiction item that you would want to exist in real life? I would really like to hear that. I think the coolest thing for science fiction that I would really love to have be available would be like the warp engines, where we can go like really far into space without just being clobbered by all of the space dust that's out there. So that's my answer to that silly question. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. So that is it for today. I am so thankful for all of you for listening. God bless each and every one of you, and I will see you guys on Friday. Bye, Humblebees.
Thanks for listening, Humblebees. This is Tulips and Honey. Over and out.
I think that diamond still needs a little more polish.
Yeah.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you, sister?
Good. Can you see me? I can't see myself. Where am I? Here.
I
there we go.
can't see you. I can hear you though. So we're 50% of the way there.
They're what's the word? They're switch this.
You're doing great. I can edit it out. You're good.
Yes.
You're good.
Yes.
I'm thinking. No, you're fine.
Oh God.
I get what you mean though. Like when we're talking about the different what do they call those? You just said it. You said the missing links. Pretending like everybody is I don't know where I was going with that. Nowadays things. Oh, thank you, babies. You hit your toe. I'm so sorry. On the door. I'm sorry. A board meeting? Nope, we're not bored. We're really excited.
Board meeting.
She doesn't think I'm funny. she just looked at me like, wow, I love you.
Good joke, Mom.
I know, right? Mom jokes. You know, they have those programs where if you're broke, like I was broke, you can just take the test.
And it's just a big mud. What is it called? Mud. Well, just like
if there's a topic that you want to learn about,
yeah.
Oh no, did I cut off?
A little bit, but I don't know if it's my end or both of ours. I don't know, but
because I can see it. I'm gonna see if I can fix that real quick. And I have my extender open. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? Next. Okay. I kind of went all over the place.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
That's good. That's good. Oops, that didn't work. I lost my mouse. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, now we'll say bye. All right, bye.
Okay.